Before we get into the nitty-gritty of color correction, I want to show you a few effects you can use to very quickly color correct footage. I'm going to go over here to the Effects and Presets panel. I'm going to open up the Color Correction category. By the way, I have a few third-party effects that I have installed. You won't have those. Those are ones that I've purchased on the side, but we're not going to be using them in this training series. We're talking about them at all, so don't worry about that. So I'm going to open up Color Correction. You'll see that the top three here, the first ones, because they start with letter A and they're organized alphabetically here, are auto effects. So if we apply auto color, we're going to basically color correct the white balance. What the auto color effect does is it looks at the white in your footage and it will automatically balance the colors so that the white is actually white. So if we go to the effects icon next to auto color and see the before and after, the footage kind of looked okay before, but this was actually tinted a little blue. And so the auto color effect recognized that and basically balanced everything out in the entire image to be fixed. Get rid of what they call the color cast. So now the white is a more accurate white, and the rest of the colors we assume are more accurate as well. Now, as with many effects, you can fade the effect essentially by increasing blend with original. As we bump up this value, then we blend this effect in with the original, basically softening the intensity of the effect. Take this back to 0 for right now so we get the full effect. Now, if you're playing this over video and you find that the colors are a little wild in the video, maybe as you're strolling through the camera view, there's a light that pops up or something, then you can increase temporal smoothing. That will balance out the color correction over several frames. By default, what it's going to do is look at every single frame of video individually and color correct them individually, but if you're playing 30 frames a second, that could cause some jumpiness in the colors. So increasing temporal smoothing will smooth that out. Now I'm going to select auto color in the effect controls panel and delete it. A couple other auto effects here. There's auto contrast, which basically deals with the luminance, just the brightness values. Doesn't really change the color, just working with the brightness. But again, we have the same temporal smoothing and blend with original parameters as we did with auto color. I'm going to select that and delete it. Auto levels is probably the best of the three, but it works on each color channel individually, red, green, and blue. Because of that, it is possible to have a shift in colors. From my experience, there really isn't too much difference between auto color and auto levels usually, although my experience has been that auto levels delivers a little bit better results from time to time. Now, one other effect I want to show you, I'm going to do a search for it here in the Effects and Presets panel search window, is Equalize. Just type EQU in and Equalize will pop up. I'm just going to drag and drop this onto my footage. Now, at first, it is a little intense sometimes, but what I'm going to do is take down Amount to Equalize to about 50%. Now, although this really doesn't do too much as far as color correction, it still looks pretty cool. It adds a cool kind of contrasty feel to the footage, and it does this without you having to know too much about how to get this effect manually. Now, if you go over to the Effect Controls panel under the Equalize dropdown, we have a few methods that it uses to equalize. Now, Photoshop Style and RGB are about the same usually from my experience, but brightness is a little different. Brightness just tends to take and equalize the brightness of the footage. In our case here, we have a gritty, desaturated result. Now, to show you what Equalize is really doing, I'm going to get a little bit more advanced. So if you're into just a quick color correction, then go ahead and stop the movie now. And if you want to get a little bit more hardcore, then I'm going to show you what this is doing. I want to click the Reset button so we get the full effect of the Equalize effect here. And I'm going to apply the Levels effect. Now, in a couple of movies down the road, I'm going to be explaining to you what this histogram thing is all about right here, this little chart, as we talk about levels. But for now, just realize that this is a readout of the brightness values of our image. I'm going to take the levels effect, I'm going to drag it above the equalize effect. That means that it's going to process before the equalize effect. So this little curve right here shows us the brightness values for this footage before the equalize effect is applied. So in other words, it's giving us a readout of this image. Now looking at this histogram, it's basically a chart. The right side over here is basically telling us how much we have in the way of highlights. The fact that it's flat indicates that there's not many bright tones here. The left side indicates the shadows. The middle represents the midtones. So this footage is showing a lot of dark midtones. Not too much in the way of shadows, not a lot in the way of highlights or bright midtones, but a lot of dark midtones. Now, if I drag this levels effect after the equalize effect and turn it back on here, we can see that this histogram is spread out now. So in effect, the brightness values have been equalized. They've been spread out throughout the entire spectrum. So there's more shadows, there's more highlights, there's more bright midtones, and there's about the same amount of dark midtones, but it's a more smooth arc here rather than just one single spike. And because of that smoothing out, because of that equalization, a lot of times we have a really cool final result.